Gentle parenting promises calmer homes. But if you've tried endless validation and you still feel like you're walking on eggshells with your kids, well, you already know it's not enough. But here's why. Let's talk about what gentle parenting is and isn't. What it does is a style of parenting that emphasizes empathy, validation, and connection over punishment. It is something that appeals to parents who want to break cycles of yelling, harsh punishment, especially if you grew up with that. It promises that if you validate enough, that kids will calm down and cooperate. And these are all great ideals, but we're going to talk about why it doesn't work because it doesn't work on its own. It needs to be coupled with regulating because validation alone doesn't regulate the nervous system. And in fact, it actually can backfire you right on it. So kids may feel heard but not feel safe. And that's a huge difference. If our nervous system is reacting to things and we're trying to help our kids feel by feeling heard, but we're not helping to regulate, it's going to backfire. So empathy without boundaries leads to more dysregulation, not less. Parents feel drained because they're constantly validating and then this kid isn't regulating and then they're stuck in this cycle and they're walking on eggshells and then they're doubting themselves and in fact feel very dysregulated themselves. And I worked with a mom, her name was Missy, and she had a daughter, Emma, who had a lot of worries starting from when she was little. And so she would validate her worries. Her daughter would say, "Am I going to get there on time?" And Missy would say, "Emma, we're going to get there in time. Okay. We're going to get there." And then it just started becoming more and more and more. And we're going to talk about why that happened. But the missing piece is regulation first parenting. We've got to regulate ourselves and we have to help our kids regulate their own nervous system in order for empathy and validation to stick. So it's regulate first. We regulate, we connect, then we correct, we teach, we do all those other things. But a dysregulated brain can't process, it can't connect, it can't deal with the correction because it's not able to learn. Regulation is what cues safety of the nervous system. And that safety is what makes cooperation possible. Without that regulation, gentle turns into permissive and behaviors escalate. Why validation alone backfires. Constant I understand without tools or limits actually can fuel anxiety. And kids don't know how to regulate themselves. They become dependent on an adult validating for them. Kids don't learn how to calm, they only learn that emotions dominate all the time. They get caught up in all these big feelings, right? We're always talking about these deeply feeling kids, deeply feeling kids. Well, there's a bunch of them out there because they don't know how to regulate. Boundaries plus co regulation equals true security. You don't need to choose between being gentle or firm. What the real secret is to regulate first, then connect, then learn. That's the missing ingredient in this sauce. You're trying to replicate Philomena's brajol. You got to know the technique of how to actually do it and really regulating first. This is where we're flipping this parenting conversation all around. We have to parent with the nervous system in mind. That's what regulation first is. That's what's going to change it. Gentle parenting isn't bad. It's just that we really got to regulate first. That's why you're spinning your wheels. Kids can borrow your calm from your nervous system. You know this. This is co regulation. And when kids feel grounded, they feel safe enough to settle. They feel safe enough to cooperate. They feel safe enough to pay attention and learn. And this is all deeply subconscious. Your subconscious literally is in charge 95 to 99.5% of the time. That's how powerful our subconscious brain is. Thanks, Freud. Boundaries are safety. They are clear, predictable limits that lower anxiety and reduce power struggles. When we over validate our kids, we are not creating boundaries. We're actually feeding their anxiety. We have to teach our kids coping skills, and they're not going to learn how to problem solve, cope with stress independently Okay. You cannot keep being their safety vest. They need us. We are their scaffolding people. We need them to move out of the nest in many ways and in stages and be super successful and feel not just feel good, but be regulated in their responses to things. And co-regulation is so powerful because you are giving them a steady breath. You are showing them what to do. Your body is cueing them, and your body meaning your voice, your tone, or you're crossing your arms. I was talking to John Carl. He just caught his teacher gave him missed a point on his test. So he's got to go in and ask for her and ask. I was giving him the cues of like, okay, this is if you see this body language, because she's not exactly the easiest of teachers. So we hear. He's given me a little kind of things that they're saying, not really a conflict with him, but just watching and observing how he interacts with other teachers. So I gave him a game plan of looking at her body language and listening for the tone. And that if she seemed really irritated by asking to legitimately have this other point, he could walk away. Cause I said, let mom be the difficult one. I said, I've made many a person cry, and that's okay. And I mean that in a good way. Crying is a good thing. Sometimes we forget. But I've had many times I went and supported students in schools and special ed meetings and 504 meetings. And as I always said, it's on like Donkey Kong when we're in that meeting. It's going down. That kid's going to get what they need if I'm on the case. No longer do that, people. We really have to really regulate because that regulation is going to let us have that connection. Once their brain is settled, that's where validation starts happening. That's when we can validate and discuss. We don't always want to validate our worries. We want to discuss them and help them problem solve. Nothing's going to happen until you do that. Correction is last, right? Regulate, connect, and then we correct, teach. Teaching sticks only when the nervous system is regulated. I mean, I think you can see that. You can see that in every day. Some of these people that are just so regulated, they absorb so much. I feel like ever since I did neurofeedback, besides it really kind of just crisping my thinking, the regulation took me to a whole other level of thinking and speed of thinking and just how quickly I learn. I'm irritated by how slow everybody is around me. I pretend like I'm not, only my real people know. And I don't mean this in everyday life. I mean like when I'm in a training and I'm with a bunch of other people who are supposed to be as capable as I am, I feel like I'm watching people in slow motion kind of thing. And regulation is a big part of that. And that's not always the case, but it happens a lot. And I see stress hijack them. And you're like, you just have to click this button right here. And they're like, oh, what is the benefits of regulation first? We're going to have fewer meltdowns. We're going to have faster recovery, stronger connection, better focus and follow through, and true coping skills that last. Because again, these things can't stick unless we regulate first. So, what are you going to do this week? Remember, Philomena, you got to move your coolie. Okay. So many of you are stuck in analysis paralysis. It's one of the greatest things I see when people work with me in brain behavior reset program, which if you want to get more support, you're looking for solutions, you go to drroseann.com/help, and that's our solution matcher. And you may be guided to that or something else. But analysis paralysis is an awful thing. Take action. So instead of rushing to validate and over explain and chiacchierona, talk too much, we're going to pause and we're going to regulate ourselves first and set a simple boundary with a calm presence. That is it. You do not have to do anything. You don't have to say anything. That comes later. But just pulling back and pausing, don't rescue, don't validate. Because what happened with Missy is that she started over validating Emma's problems. And what happened? She became borderline obsessive compulsive and started needing constant validation all the time and had constant worries. Well, by the time they got to me, it really was splitting hairs between if it was OCD or not. Moms quickly got in there before it became super, super entrenched, which OCD and obsessive compulsive thinking can. But she was very, very anxious and was needing her mother's validation in order to get relief. We were able to turn that around. Gentle parenting, open the door, but regulation first is the foundation that makes everything else work. Whatever style of parenting sticks for you, except for constant punishment and authoritarian, regulation first parenting is what makes the learning happen. So if you're looking for more step by step tools to go beyond gentle parenting, to help your kids really learn and pay attention, then what you need is to sign up for a Dysregulation Insider newsletter. You get great tips, science every week, and you also get special insider information on my book, all about regulation first parenting. You go to drroseann.com/newsletter. And just remember, pause before you rescue or validate this week.
Want more insights and solutions? Well, subscribe to our Dysregulation Insider and it will show up in your inbox every week.